what is the difference between a post-traumatic stress response and a post-traumatic stress disorder? And I'm going to say a post-traumatic stress response or a post-traumatic stress disorder because there's a lot of identifiers that go along with this. Most of us are going to experience post-traumatic stress responses at some point in our life. It's very normal for us to have a traumatic event and then not really take the time to process and understand it in the acute phases because our brain just isn't ready to. Our amygdala goes on high alert, our survival skills kick in, we might be experiencing shock and all of these other things. And so it's very normal for us to have things like flashbacks and hypervigilance and some of these diagnostic criteria that we see in PTSD, meaning disorder, that we could say is really a post-traumatic stress response. Usually what we are going to say is if we can get those symptoms under control within 1 year of the triggering event, I, Sarah Westbrook, am going to diagnose that as a post-traumatic stress response. Or I will usually utilize the diagnostic thing as an adjustment disorder. You had something happen in your life and you're having a difficult adjusting and getting things back to normal. That's how I would diagnose that for insurance purposes. But anything that goes over a year, now we start to get that disorder letter, that D at the end instead of that R at the end of that. Really what we're looking for when there's a disorder is it interfering with your day-to-day functioning? So things like, are you experiencing chronic insomnia due to night terrors? Okay, I, Sarah Westbrook, personally managed my CPTSD during the daytime really, really well. And I would say that in that regards, I'm in remission. But if I don't take my trazodone at night, I have significant PTSD nightmares still to this day. If I skip that dose, I will have basically a flashback in the form of a dream that will wake me up screaming, and that can set me backwards for quite some time. And so I take trazodone, which really helps me. And trazodone is a well-known medication used for PTSD nightmares. So is propranolol, and then there's prazosin. Thank you. So there's some other medications that they use for that as well. If you feel that you need medication for PTSD type night terrors or night terrors in general, please see a prescribing provider. If it's for PTSD, I recommend seeing a psychiatrist because psychiatrists are very well versed in the interaction of these medications, and general practitioners they get the basics. So general practitioners, when it comes to treating psychological issues, they're fairly well adept when it's a very simple, straightforward diagnosis. Like if it's just a little bit of anxiety or something, they tend to do a really good job. Once it gets more complex, we're gonna change that term once it gets more into the nitty gritty, because we've been talking about complex trauma. But once the diagnosis, if you're having PTSD symptoms, I'm going to highly recommend, if you need medication for that, please go see a licensed prescriber specifically for psychotropic medication.
Don't take the recommendations that you just gave and run with them.
Right. A psychiatric PA, a psychiatric nurse practitioner, or a psychiatrist. Those are the ones I'm most familiar with that prescribe psychiatric medications. Because you want somebody that is well-versed in those areas. So again, a post-traumatic stress response could be a complex post-traumatic stress response, although that's more if the issues within the family that you've been removed from them and they were not ongoing for a prolonged period of time. So I would say a CPTSR is going to be really rare for us to see because the chronic abuse would have happened in less than 12 months, and then the response being treated and managed again within less than 12 months. So unfortunately, that doesn't happen very often. So what we see is a post-traumatic stress response. Usually we have acute trauma that the symptoms don't seem to resolve, that begin to interfere with functioning for less than 1 year. And then we're going to see PTSD for symptoms that do not resolve past 1 year. But you can also get a PTSD diagnosis prior to the 1 year mark if your traumatic stress response is so severe that it is interfering with your ability to function normally. And when we say function normally, that's pretty subjective.
Sure.
In the sense that some people, like for our son Brig, who has schizophrenia, he can get pretty out of whack over smaller day-to-day stresses that wouldn't really ruffle my feathers at all. But any time that he's not able to engage with society in order to, earn his income or go to school or associate with people he has to, sleep, eating, those types of things, if you're constantly on edge or really irritable or really jumpy, then and it's interfering with your ability to do the things that you used to do and love, there's a good chance there that you're developing that disordered side of things. Hey y'all, we would love to invite you to join our Facebook group, Unpacking Mormonism and Other Religious Trauma, on Facebook so that we can have some open dialogue and foster a community of support. Thanks so much.